Hey everyone, welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into something that is, honestly, going to completely flip the script on how you think about intelligence. For the longest time, calling someone smart meant one very specific thing. But thanks to some groundbreaking neuroscience from Dr. Hiromu Monai at Ochanomizu University, that old definition, it's pretty much obsolete. Today, we're redefining what it means to be smart, and we're looking at something called brain endurance and the hidden power of your brain's glial cells. So let's get right into it, because this is going to totally change how you look at your own mind.
Okay, so think about this. What does it actually mean to be smart these days? Since we were kids, the gold standard was, staring at a test, memorizing facts, and just spitting out the exact right answer as fast as humanly possible. It's basically a system that rewards whoever raises their hand first. But let's take a step back. Is getting the correct answer really the ultimate sign of intelligence in the crazy, fast-paced adult world we live in? I mean, your intuition is probably telling you right now that something about that just doesn't quite add up anymore.
And if you're feeling that way, you are spot on. Because look around us. We are officially living in a VUCA era. That stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. It's a world where all these factors are just completely tangled together. So those predictable rules and absolute right answers we relied on in the past, they literally just don't exist anymore. Which means measuring someone's smarts by how fast they can recall an answer someone else already invented, well, it's becoming outdated fast. So we need to draw a really sharp line between two vastly different types of brain power. On one side, you have IQ, the classic intelligence quotient. Now remember, this was originally built for school systems, basically to make sure kids didn't fall behind. Think of IQ like a short sprint to a known correct finish line. But on the other side, what we actually need to survive this VUCA world is brain endurance. This is the grit to grapple with unsolved, messy problems and just persistently think through them without throwing in the towel. It's not a sprint at all. It's a mental marathon. And that right there is the true definition of modern intelligence. All right, so the big societal shift is pretty obvious, but this is where the science gets really, really cool. If IQ isn't the secret weapon for modern life anymore, what exactly is the biological engine that drives this brain endurance? What is physically happening inside our skulls? And what kinds of cells are actually doing the heavy lifting when we face problems that don't have clear answers? To understand this, let's look at a pretty brilliant metaphor. Usually, when people talk about neuroscience, neurons, the nerve cells, they get all the glory. They're the stars of the show. They handle the flashy stuff: information processing, memory, conscious thought. They're basically the celebrity commanders of the brain. But behind the curtain, keeping those stars alive so they can actually perform, that's a group of unsung heroes known as glial cells. You can think of them as the ultimate, highly skilled housekeepers. And without them, those celebrity neurons literally couldn't even walk onto the stage. So what exactly is this housekeeper crew doing all day? Well, glial cells actually have an unbelievably demanding job. They are constantly supplying vital nutrients to the neurons, they act as the cleanup crew, sweeping away brain waste, and they even repair cellular damage. If this was your house, they're the ones cooking the meals, taking out the trash, and fixing the leaky roof. Without this massive, invisible infrastructure, neurons just can't process information for very long. That brain endurance we talked about? It is entirely powered by the behind-the-scenes hustle of your glial cells. Now, check out how this plays out across the animal kingdom, because it beautifully shows how brain complexity evolves. If we look at the ratio of neurons to glial cells, there's a huge trend. Take mice, for example. Their neurons vastly outnumber their glial cells. Then you look at cats, and the ratio is roughly 1-to-1. But humans? In our brains, glial cells actually outnumber neurons. The takeaway here is that the more complex a brain gets and the more it needs that high-level endurance to solve complex problems, the more it absolutely depends on glial cells to maintain the infrastructure. Okay, here's a piece of trivia that is just mind-blowing, and you'll definitely want to use this at your next dinner party. Think about Albert Einstein, arguably one of the greatest minds ever, right? Well, after he died, researchers meticulously examined his brain, and they found that in certain key areas, Einstein had exactly double the normal amount of glial cells compared to an average person. Double. That is just an overwhelming piece of evidence showing how an abundance of glial cells is fundamentally tied to profound, relentless thinking, or, in other words, massive brain endurance. Now, hearing about Einstein, you're probably thinking, awesome, I just need to figure out how to grow a ton of new glial cells and I'm set. But here's where we hit a bit of a biological wall. The hard truth is, as adults, we can't just spawn new brain cells. From the day we are born until the day we die, the total number of our neurons and glial cells is strictly on the decline. So unfortunately, just deciding to grow an Einstein-level brain right now, biologically,
Impossible.
But hey, do not let that get you down, because that limitation actually leads us to a much more empowering question. If we can't physically grow more brain cells, how in the world do we activate the ones we already have? How do we kick them into high gear so they perform at their absolute peak? This is exactly where we cross over from high-level biology into real, everyday steps that you can actually start using today.
The very first key to waking up those sleepy glial cells is all about a concept called novelty. Now, when you hear the word new, you might just think of buying the latest smartphone or a fresh pair of shoes. But from a neuroscientific perspective, to really stimulate your cells, you need experiences that are novel, meaning rare or highly uncharacteristic for you. It's not about shiny new stuff. It's about doing things you would normally never, ever choose to do. You essentially have to force yourself out of your cozy, predictable little bubble.
And according to Dr. Monai's research, actually flipping the switch on your glial cells takes a 1-2 punch. Step 1 is introducing that novel experience we just mentioned, but step 2 is what seals the deal, triggering emotional arousal. And I don't just mean feeling a little happy or sad. I'm talking about a real physical reaction, like your heart suddenly pounding or that sharp physical tension you get when something totally unexpected happens. When you combine those two things, a massive biological shift kicks off inside your brain.
So why do we need both of those steps? Well, when you do something totally uncharacteristic and you feel that physical spike of tension, your brain interprets the whole thing as a mild pinch, basically a mini survival scenario. This productive pinch forces your brain into a state of high alert. It's like an alarm bell ringing, saying, whoa, this is abnormal. We need to figure this out right now. To adapt, your brain goes into overdrive, rapidly pulling up past memories and frantically learning from your new environment. And to fuel that emergency response, your glial cells, your trusty infrastructure team, are forced to work at absolute maximum capacity. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hearing words like survival mode or pinch, you might be picturing yourself needing to, wrestle a bear or trek through a jungle. But you absolutely do not need to do anything extreme or dangerous to hack this system. The real question is, how do we intentionally create these productive pinches right in the middle of our perfectly normal everyday lives? And the good news is, it's actually incredibly easy and accessible. We can really break this down into two super practical strategies. You've got a macro habit for the weekends and a micro habit for your daily grind. A great example of a macro habit is solo travel. Think about it. Planning the routes, the food, the lodging, entirely by yourself. It is a massive jolt of novelty. But if you're too busy to just jet off somewhere, try the micro habit. This is as simple as intentionally taking a totally different route to work, or just letting yourself get a tiny bit lost on an afternoon walk. It's a minuscule tweak, but it yields huge results.
Let's unpack that solo travel idea for a second, just to see why it's such an amazing brain workout. When you travel with friends, let's be honest, it is way too easy to just coast along and follow someone else's itinerary. But when you are flying solo, everything is on you. If you get lost, you have to figure it out. You have to navigate weird menus in unfamiliar places. It's just a nonstop wave of unpredictable choices. And that mild physical tension we talked about, that combination is basically the ultimate high-intensity interval training for your glial cells. But I really want to leave you with a reassuring takeaway here. To build the kind of brain endurance you need to thrive in our crazy, unpredictable world, you do not need to be a born genius. You definitely don't need Einstein's DNA. Brain endurance is a completely controllable skill. It's something you actively build through simple, daily, out-of-the-ordinary choices. You literally just need to decide to take a different street to the grocery store today. That one tiny decision is enough to start waking up your brain's hidden infrastructure. The days of judging human potential purely by an IQ test? Those days are over. Now it's all about training our glial cells and building up the endurance to tackle problems that don't have an answer key in the back of the book. So I'll leave you with this final thought. What novel thing are you going to do today to put your brain into a productive pinch? It could literally be as simple as ordering a lunch you've never tried before. I challenge you to start surprising your own brain starting today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I will catch you next time.